Maybe Carlos Rodon has done this by himself, but I think that Carlos Rodon is also a success story because his arsenal has expanded and his pitching maturity has grown. And I always start with the player being adaptable enough in both of those ways to do it. But this is not a success story I saw coming. I even a couple of starts into this season when Aaron Boone was talking about, well, this was 3-run homers, and I'm like, well, 3-run homers count. Like we can't just say aside from the 3-run homers. If you give up a 3-home run homer and you're a pitcher, you're probably going to lose the game. And they were ill-timed. It was like walks in front of it and stuff. And the comparison I consistently made was he was the left-handed AJ Burnett. The stuff was great. And at the end of the day, you'd look at the pitching line and be like, how did a guy with this kind of stuff have that kind of bad pitching line? Well, it was that. It was ill-timed, bad pitches at the wrong moment.
Can I give you a stat for that Rodon moment you're making right now? So
Yep.
Rodon, right now, after he struck out Tyler Ward the other night in the Angels in the third, batters are now hitting 118. So they're 2 for their last 17 with runners in scoring position and 2 outs versus Carlos Rodon this season. He has struck out 7 of 19 batters faced in that exact situation with runners on and 2 outs. That is what you're talking about here. And the impressive.
He has found his ability. Well, look, when the Yankees signed Max Fried, Ryan, the thing they didn't say out loud to everybody was, we think teaming Cole and Fried will lower the pressure and expectations on Rodon and will get more out of him by asking less. Well, Cole gets hurt and they have to turn to him to literally start opening day. And once you're into the Will Warren, Carlos Carrasco, Marcus Stroman back of the rotation, they're like, you got to give us innings, man, and you got to give us it at a high level. And so now the pressure is ratcheted back on. And that guy's been an all-star. He's the hardest to hit pitcher in the sport right now. He's got the lowest batting average against in the sport. He's got one of the highest strikeout levels. And by the way, he's doing the thing also. He's putting the ball on the ground a little more than he historically has done. So he has slowed the game down, let his skill, which it was always AJ Burnett's skill, top of the sport skill, really flourish. The combination of him and Fried providing high quality, and here comes the key word, innings. They are protecting the bullpen. They are protecting the back of the rotation by the number of innings these guys are doing. And there have been a couple of times in this streak, and I think Rodon has made 12 starts. The last 10 or so, there's been some moments where it's like early high pitch count or maybe early runs, and you're like, and he is getting outs in the 6th inning in those games. And that is such a progressive step. Don't quit. Understand the big picture. Manage the game in a way that we didn't see those first 2 years as a Yankee. And I would say a sentence that I did not expect to come out of my mouth at the end of late May is he has been worth every penny the Yankees have paid. And he is a significant reason that they're 35-20.
I totally agree with you, Joel. And what a turn Rodon has made for his Yankees career already. And I just think about, and it's funny, they were just in Colorado. I just think about that image of him walking off the mound, pulled early, blowing the kisses to the fans who are booing him off the field. And look what he's doing right now. He is, besides Max Fried, he is carrying, like you said, at the top of that rotation and dominating. And he's getting out of jams when he needs to. And he's performing at such a high level. This is what the Yankees needed. And it's really nice to see. And I think you spoke about it on the show yesterday with John Heyman. He's a good guy. Like from all intents and purposes, like I know
he's great to deal with.
Yeah,
I mean, on his worst days in those first 2 years, he never duck reporters, and I'm not just talking about the days he started. He's a stop and talk guy. So I always had whatever that thing is as a reporter, admiration, respect. I do understand we are talking to these people soon after bad public performance. I do. I think sometimes in our business we forget, like, where is this guy? I don't know. He just kind of embarrassed himself in front of 45,000 people and who knows how many people are watching. we do want to give them, we have to do our job, so we have to have this mutual respect that you do have to, like, if you do this right, you do have to come out and talk. It's part of the gig for a professional athlete, especially in a big city. But there are times uh, where, it's not great.
Yeah.
And the guys who stand up and talk about it, I do feel admiration for. I'm sorry, I'm just blanking. Somebody walked out on without talking yesterday who was a huge player, and somebody called me to complain. I'm like, just want to look at it real quick. Who is it? Oh, um, so Jackson Jobe, who's a young pitcher on the Tigers, his velocity was down yesterday. And so it's an obvious story. And again, I hope the fans understand. I assume you, if you're a Tiger fan, want to know it's your number one pitching prospect. Where'd your velocity go? The only way to really know is to ask Jackson Jobe, hey, is this an issue or not? And he skipped out and didn't talk to reporters. And I think that that's bad institutional from the very top of, including media relations department, but also a veteran player who has to walk over to you and say, this is part of it. Like if you want to stand there on the day you throw the 3-hit shutout and get flowers, this is the other end of it. When things don't go perfectly, the fans want to know on the bad days what's going on also. And
Absolutely.
these guys are the conduit of how the fans find out. They're reporting on this game, and you're an interesting public figure on this game. Anyway, we went off on some journalism
No,
tangent here. But to your point, fighting with Matt Blake, waving to the crowd, giving up 6 runs in 3 innings, whatever it was, Carlos Rodon not only was there on what feels mandatory.
hmm
Hey, you got to go stand after you pitch. But I can't tell you how many times I went up to to his locker and said, "Hey, Carlos, got a second?" He said, "Yeah." And I was asking, "Hey, I know you've been playing with this pitch, or maybe I'm asking a bigger question." I have not had a moment in 2+ years where I went to Carlos Rodon and got anything but, "Yeah, man, what do you need?"
Yeah, and that for me, like as a fan, and I'm sure for you guys in the press, that's where you deserve flowers, in my opinion. Like you're making yourself available. It's like, hey man, I could talk to you whenever. Like that's refreshing compared to
It's
them.
having respect for fans.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I know it's hard to look at me and see thousands of fans, but I'm not selling what you tell me on the street. I'm putting it online in the newspaper. We're talking about it here. We're talking about it on the podcast I do with John or on television when I'm on MLB Network. That's what I'm doing with it. And hopefully, if I'm doing it well with some craft, I know the question to ask. I know how to frame it. I know I could retain the information you're giving me and remember it correctly in the right order. And then I kind of like it's a bang shot and pool, right? It's coming to me and then it's going out to fans who I assume are like, oh, why is Carlos Rodon pitching blank? Great, terrible, on Thursday, whatever. Like if I'm doing my job right, that question you have in your head, I'm asking the question, then I'm kind of carom shotting it in pool to you. Anyway, we're still kind of doing journalism
It's
here. I didn't mean
okay. I think it's
uh,
fascinating stuff with Carlos Rodon because, listen, this is the best stretch of his career, 8 games. He has a 1.27 ERA over his last 8 games. That's the lowest ERA over any 8 game span in a season for him in his career. So he's pitching the best he ever has in his career right now.
So I hope this analogy makes sense. I was talking to some Met people recently about Juan Soto, and they know that I saw probably all 700 plate appearances or so last year, or a good deal of them. And one of them said, what do you think's missing? And I said, I know everybody's talking about like the strut and things like that. I'm like, that's wallflower bullshit. To me, what's missing is in this day and age when it's so hard to hit, the velocity's never been better, the movement's never been better, and the understanding of what each individual's hitter's weakness is has never been better for all the reasons. So it is hard to hit now. So the number of hitters who feel in control of an at bat you could count on a hand. And I said, Juan Soto last year it felt like he had the ball. Like he was like, you can't get it by me. I know what you're trying to do. He felt in control of the at bat, where it's just like, whatever you bring, day game, night game, guys on base, Guy's not on base. We're winning by a lot. We're losing by a lot. He was in control of the at bat. You could feel it, like the pitcher was sweating with him. Carlos Rodon, for the first time as a Yankee, feels in control of the game. To your point, like it's first and second, no out. You now believe he has the concept, not just the stuff, but the concept of how to manage this inning. How do I do it? Well, I could put this guy on the ground and I could strike that guy out. That's how I'm managing inning. And feels like he's taken a deep breath and is like, I have great stuff. How and more stuff than ever, more different stuff. And how do I manage that stuff to do it, which feels freed like, which feels Cole like, beyond the stuff, which is I know how to make sure this doesn't become a 3 or 4 run inning. This will be a 1 run inning or a no run inning. I know how to manage it. The ball isn't going to go over the fence for a 3 run inning here. I know where this guy's slug is at, and I've taken a deep breath, and I'm going to stay away from that slug no matter what. And I just feel like in that way where it was like, no matter what the outcome was with Soto last year, you didn't think that he wasn't in control.
Mm.
Sometimes you strike out, sometimes you pop out, whatever, but he felt in control. Rodon's going to give up 6 runs in a game at some point soon here, just because that's baseball. But I'll be curious then what that next start, because it's still like, let's see it for a full season. But I have now reached a point after about these last 10 starts where I watch a Rodon start, and I expect him not only to pitch well, but that when crisis within a game arises, instead of speeding up, which seemed to be happening those first 2 years as a Yankee, where he wasn't thinking clearly, he has found, which is, by the way, when you take the punch in New York, Sonny Gray, Javier Vasquez, Ed Whitson, we got a lot of guys. Not a lot get off the canvas. Says something. The guy's gotten off the canvas in New York. That's not an easy thing to do. It's not the history here. And we're going to now find out about Juan Soto getting off.